What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another footy video on the channel. Today I'm going to be going over every stadium's largest attendance in their history. So essentially what I'll be doing is I'll be going from 20th largest capacity to the highest ever capacity of all time per AFL stadium. It might sound a little bit confusing at first, but you'll understand it as the video progresses. So yeah, let's get right into it. Coming in at 20th on our list, we've got Arden Street with a capacity of 35,000. Now this isn't their capacity, this is their highest ever attendance. They got 35,000 in a 1949 clash between North Melbourne and Carlton. Obviously Arden Street is a stadium that they don't use anymore. Now only got a capacity of 5,000. The 19th spot, we've got Brunswick Street Oval. Again, this was a home ground that was used by Fitzroy way back in the day. Their highest ever attendance was 36,000 in 1935 between Fitzroy and Collingwood. And now the capacity is reduced to 15,000. Now at 18th on the list, we've got a more recent stadium, one that is still used today. And this is the Gabba. The highest ever attendance at the Gabba was 37,478. And this was the 2019 qualifying final between Brisbane and Richmond. Now, according to Wikipedia, the Gabba's capacity for AFL games is actually, in fact, 37,478. So that game between Brisbane and Richmond was a full packed out house. Not a single seat was left out missing. Now, 17th on the list, we have Lake Oval with a crowd of 41,000 as its most. And this was way back in 1932 between South Melbourne and Carlton. Now, Lake Oval is now a soccer ground and is has a capacity of 12,000. So it's not a footy ground anymore. It's been demolished or it's been renovated, been upgraded. It's now a soccer ground. And obviously footy isn't played there anymore. Now 16th on the list, we've got the Western Oval, aka the Whitten Oval, with the highest attendance there being 42,354. And this was in 1955 between the Western Bulldogs and Collingwood. Now its capacity during this time that it was actually hosting AFL games, it was actually 25,000. So don't ask me how the hell they added an extra 17,500 people to that attendance. But obviously now they don't play AFL anymore, so the capacity is reduced to just 10,000. Coming in at number 15th on the spot, we've got another Victorian suburban ground that was formerly hosted AFL games. Now this is Windy Hill, and the highest attendance at the ground was 43,487, and this is in 1966, the year the Saints won their only flag between the Bombers and the Pies. Now, the capacity, of course, is reduced now as games are no longer played there anymore to just 10,000. Now, 14th on the list, we've got Subiaco Oval, which was obviously the former home ground of West Coast and Freo before Optus Stadium was built. The highest attendance at this ground was 44,142, and this was a qualifying final between West Coast and Hawthorn in 1991. Now again, this doesn't really make sense, but the capacity for Subiaco was only 43,082. So again, I don't know how they got the extra 1,000 people to fill out the crowd, but obviously now the stadium has been demolished, so there is a capacity of 0. Now next up on the list, 13th spot, we've got Punt Road. Now Punt Road obviously was the former home ground of the Richmond Tigers way back in the day, and the highest attendance at this ground was 46,000, and this is between Richmond and Carlton way back in 1949. Now the stadium currently only holds 5,000 people, with the infamous Jack Dyer grandstand soon to be demolished in the coming years. Now 12th on the list, we've got the Sydney Cricket Ground, the SCG. The highest attendance at this ground was 46,323, and this is actually quite a recent match between Sydney and Essendon in 2017, the elimination final. The SCG currently has a capacity of 48,601. Now moving into 11th spot, we've got the Junction Oval. The highest attendance at this stadium was 47,000, and this was in 1950 when it was formerly the St Kilda home ground, and this is between St Kilda and Collingwood in 1950, and Junction Oval now only has a capacity of 7,000. Now number 10th spot on the list, we've got GMHBA Stadium. The highest attendance at this ground was 49,107, and this was way back in 1952 between Geelong and Carlton. Now of course there have been many redevelopments and refurbishments that have occurred to this ground since then, which has reduced the capacity to 40,000 as it currently stands. From here on in, every single stadium that I'm about to mention has had an attendance of at least 50,000 plus. And in 9th spot, we've got Football Park, the former home ground of Adelaide and PortAdelaide, with the highest attendance being 51,140, and this was a showdown between Adelaide and Port in 2003. Now, the capacity for this stadium was actually 51,240, so they missed out on having an entirely full stadium by just 100. The stadium has since been demolished, and obviously the capacity there is 0. Now, 8th spot on this list, this one actually really surprised me. We've got Moorabbin Oval, which is obviously now RSEA Park, the former home ground of St Kilda. The highest ever attendance was 51,370 between St Kilda and Collingwood in 1965. In fact, this was the first ever game posted at Moorabbin Oval, and is, still to this day held the record for the highest attendance at the stadium. But obviously the stadium's capacity has been reduced quite significantly to only 8,000 at the moment. Now, coming at number 7 on this list, we've got the current stadium in the Adelaide Oval, with the highest ever attendance at this stadium being 53,817. Now, it doesn't surprise me that this was a final. This was between Adelaide and Geelong in 2017, the prelim final. The capacity for Adelaide Oval is in fact 55,317. Now, 6th spot, we've got Docklands Stadium, obviously also known as Marvel Stadium, with the highest ever AFL crowd being 54,444 in the famous clash in 2009 between St Kilda v Geelong. This is arguably the greatest home and away game of all time. I mean, leading into this game, the two sides were, I think, 13-0. You'll never see that again in an AFL season. But yeah, this sort of surprised me as well, because the capacity accordingly is only 53,359. The stadium has stayed the same since it got built in 2000, so I'm not too sure how the extra 1,000 people fit into the stadium. Now, we're getting to the nitty-gritty here. We're moving into the top 5, and coming in 5th position, we've got Optus Stadium with a record attendance of 61,111. Yeah, to no surprise, this was the 2021 AFL Grand Final between Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs. It was just 155 shy of reaching full capacity, which is 61,266. Now, the top 4, at 4th spot, we've got Princes Park, which is again really surprising. Its record attendance is in fact 62,986, and this is for the 1945 Grand Final. I think they hosted the Grand Final in Princes Park because the MCG was being used as a base for World War II, whatever it was. But yeah, the 1945 Grand Final between South Melbourne and Carlton. The capacity, though, during the time was only 35,000. So again, I have a feeling that a lot of people just spilled onto the ground. The capacity has been slightly reduced to just 24,568. So now the top 3. And at 3rd spot, which really does surprise me, to be honest, is ANZ Stadium with an attendance high of 72,393. Now, of course, this stadium really isn't used very often for AFL games. In fact, it is actually going to be used again this year in round 1. But this is between Sydney and Collingwood in 2003. And this is a round 21 clash as well. That really shocks me. 73,000 people packed at ANZ Stadium for a round 21 footy match. Doesn't make much sense. The capacity, though, is 82,500. But I mean, it doesn't shock me that there hasn't been a sellout at ANZ for a footy game, considering at the end of the day, it is just a rugby ground. Now, 2nd place on this list, we've got Waverley Park, also known as VFL Park, with the record attendance being 92,935. And this is between Hawthorn and Collingwood in 1981. Now, the capacity for the stadium was always 72,000. So again, not too sure how an extra 20,000 people were able to get into the stadium. But get this, the Waverley Park was originally set to host 157,000 people. Could you just imagine if they went through with that and Waverley Park became the biggest stadium in the country? I mean, 157,000, that would have been the biggest stadium, not just in Australia, but in the world. But yeah, in 1982, they didn't follow suit. And then, 18 years later, Waverley Park no longer hosted any AFL games due to the addition of Marvel Stadium. And now the capacity, which was at 172,000, is now just a mere 6,000. Now, moving to number 1 on the list, and I would be very shocked if anyone had any other stadium on this list besides the MCG. Of course, we've got the MCG with the record attendance being 121,696. It is, of course, the record for the highest attendance of any AFL game in history. This was way back in 1970. It was the grand final between Carlton and Collingwood, arguably one of the most classic grand finals of all time. The MCG, I've obviously gone through a lot of redevelopments and all that sort of stuff. The capacity now is 100,024. Anyways, guys, that rounds out the top 20 list. hopefully you guys found this video somewhat entertaining and somewhat enjoyable, and you sort of learnt a couple of new things here and there. With the off season, you know, it's all really hard to you know, come up with AFL ideas, and I want to be making primarily AFL content from this point now on into the footy season. So if you've got any ideas that you want me to do that are footy related, smack them down in the comments below and I'll heavily consider them. Tomorrow I'm going to be going to Gold Coast for a week, so it might be a little bit tough getting as many videos out as I sort of want to, but I'll try and do my best. Again, hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel. We're really close to 14,500 subscribers. Hopefully we can get it done over the next couple of days, and we'll see you soon in the next video.